The morning skies over New York City were unusually calm. A private jet stood tall on the tarmac of secluded Executive Airfield, its gleaming silver body reflecting the sun-like armor. It belonged to Lynaire Global, a private investment in tech conglomerate with roots spanning across continents. Few knew the face behind the name. Fewer still had met her in person. Dr. Zaria Lynaire, a black woman, 4 to 5, composed, brilliant, and unapologetically proud of her origins, had built the empire from nothing. Once a single mother coding at night in a one-bedroom apartment in Detroit, she now owned one of the most powerful AI firms in the world. But she didn't flaunt wealth the way others did. She preferred hoodies to heels, humility to headlines, and silence over spectacle. Today, she wore a simple beige cashmere jumpsuit with white sneakers. Her curls were pinned into a high bun, and she carried only her leather satchel, no designer logos, no entourage. She was boarding her own jet under a different name to avoid attention. It was a test flight. The crew was new. The company managing the aviation side of her empire had subcontracted a new luxury crew service. She wanted to see, unannounced, how they treated guests. She quietly approached the stairs, greeted the co-pilot with a soft, "Good morning," and stepped on board. Part 2. The Mistake. Inside the aircraft, luxury met perfection. Marble counters, ivory leather seats, soft lighting. Yet, the moment she entered, the tension hit her. The chief flight attendant, a sharp-faced woman in her early 30s named Margot, glanced up from her clipboard. She wore the look of someone who expected billionaires to dress like Bond villains. Margot snapped. "This section is reserved. Guests must board with proper clearance. Economy departures are out back." Zaria paused. Calmly, she said, "I believe I am on the manifest." Margot scoffed. "I don't care what you believe. You're clearly lost. You can't just walk onto a private jet. Now step off, or I'll call security." Zaria remained still. "May I speak with the captain, please?" The flight attendant's eyes flashed with something darker. Defiance. She reached forward and slapped the leather satchel off Zaria's shoulder. "I said get off. Don't make this difficult." The bag hit the floor with a heavy thud, revealing a silver-embossed tablet with a Lynaire Global insignia. It was at that moment the co-pilot re-entered, spotting what had just happened. He gasped. "Ms. Lynaire, I mean, Dr. Lynaire." Margot froze. "DR, what?" The tablet on the floor blinked on, showing the security clearance. "Owner, Dr. Zaria Lynaire." Part 3. The Unraveling. Within minutes, chaos unfolded. Margot stammered, tripping over her words as she tried to explain herself. I mean, you weren't dressed." Zaria raised a hand. "Enough." 2 security officers from the hangar arrived, summoned by the co-pilot. Margot was escorted off the plane, still trying to salvage a career with every excuse possible. Zaria said nothing as she took her seat. She opened her satchel, pulled out a notebook, and began writing as if the incident had never occurred. Before the doors closed, her assistant, who had remained behind on purpose, stepped on board and handed her a fresh report. "Would you like to proceed with the acquisition of that flight staffing company?" Zaria looked up. "No, we'll build our own. From scratch. One that treats every passenger like they belong, no matter the color of their skin or the cut of their clothes." Part 4. The Statement. 2 days later, the story hit every major media outlet. The security footage leaked. Social media exploded. Has Zaria Lynaire trended worldwide. Millions shared the video. The slap, the silence, the quiet revelation of her identity, and the grace with which she handled the situation. Zaria refused interviews, but she released a short public statement. "We rise not for revenge, but for justice. This is not about one woman. It's about the unseen millions treated as less. I see you. We will build higher together." And she did. Lynaire was launched 6 months later, a luxury airline with equity, diversity, and empathy at its core. Every employee, from the cleaners to the captains, trained with a single motto: kindness is first class. Zaria never sought the spotlight, but when the world looked away, she made sure it saw dignity walking with power. Margot Daniels hadn't slept in days. Her face was everywhere. TikToks, news shows, even late-night comedy segments. The slap had become a meme. She was a flight attendant who slapped a billionaire. But this wasn't fame. It was infamy. She had been fired immediately, blacklisted by every elite airline and private aviation firm. Her apartment in Queens was no longer filled with the fragrance of lavender candles and vanilla diffusers. It smelled now of fear, shame, and microwaved regret. The online harassment was brutal. People dug into her past, an old college photo with a smug caption, an email she once sent a coworker using the phrase "people like them," comments she'd posted under news articles. It all resurfaced. She applied to over 50 companies. No one called back. Her mother stopped answering her calls. Her younger sister, an activist and law student, publicly disavowed her on Twitter. Everything was crumbling. Part 6. Zaria's private dilemma. Meanwhile, in a sleek penthouse overlooking the Hudson, Zaria sat alone on her terrace. The city sparkled below, unaware of her unrest. Her executive team wanted revenge. They urged her to sue Margot publicly, make an example, issue press statements. "This is our chance to strike back," her communications director said. But Zaria wasn't so easily moved. She'd spent her life being underestimated, degraded, overlooked, but she had also spent it rising above. Her grandmother always told her, "Never let someone's ignorance become your identity." She watched the video again, the slap, the stillness, the shame. But this time, she saw something else in Margot's eyes. Fear. Not fear of Zaria's power, but fear of her own fragility being exposed. A woman whose prejudice wasn't just about race. It was about class, control, and insecurity. And Zaria knew that woman was breaking now. So she made a call. Part 7. An unexpected letter. 2 weeks later, Margot received a hand-delivered envelope. It bore no return address, only a golden Z sealed into the wax. Inside was a single sheet of parchment. "Ms. Daniels, I do not seek to destroy those who stumble. I seek to build bridges for those who learn. You mistreated me. You humiliated me. But you also gave the world a mirror, and it saw something ugly. Now the question is, will you keep running from the reflection, or will you rebuild yourself from it? I am opening a training academy, not just for flight staff, but for all service leaders, with a mission of empathy, dignity, and grace. You may apply. There will be no special treatment, no guarantee of success, but there will be a chance. ZL." Margot read the letter a dozen times. Her hands trembled. Her eyes burned. She had expected rough, but she'd received a path. Part 8. Redemption doesn't come easy. The training academy, located in Atlanta, was no spa retreat. It was intense. Workshops on racial bias, trauma-informed service, history of systemic prejudice, humility in leadership, mindfulness under pressure. Every day was a confrontation with the self. Margot wasn't treated with kid gloves. She was held accountable, challenged, and often called out by her peers, many of whom were people of color who had lived a lifetime of what she had expressed in seconds. She cried often. She nearly quit twice, but something kept her there. On the 30th day, students were asked to tell their story to the class. When her turn came, Margot stood before them, tears in her eyes. "I thought power wore pearls and heels. I thought kindness was weakness. I thought I knew who belonged in a first-class cabin and who didn't. But I've been unlearning that every day. I know I was wrong, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that people can change." The room was silent. Then Zaria, watching through a glass window, quietly nodded. Part 9. 2 years later, Zaria sat aboard the inaugural international flight of Lynaire, en route to Johannesburg. The crew moved like poetry, respectful, graceful, warm. And leading them, with the golden wings of chief cabin director on her lapel, was Margot Daniels. She approached Zaria's seat, her voice steady and sincere. "Dr. Lynaire, it is an honor to welcome you aboard." Zaria smiled. "Good to see you again, Margot." The two women held a gaze for a moment, not as enemies, not even as equals, but as people who had journeyed through fire and chosen growth. The plane soared through clouds. And so did the legacy of change. Before the headlines, before the jets, before the boardrooms and billion-dollar mergers, there was a cramped apartment on the east side of Detroit where Zaria Lynaire typed lines of code late into the night, a sleeping toddler curled up beside her on the couch. Her daughter, Imani, was the reason she worked. The city around them was crumbling, buildings boarded up, jobs scarce, hope even scarcer. Zaria had graduated top of her class in computer engineering, but no major firm had offered her a position. Too quiet, too black, too female, someone had once whispered. And so, she carved her own path. By day, she worked in a community center teaching kids to use donated laptops. By night, she built software systems, security scripts, educational apps, anything to make a few $100s a week. But one night, a spark. Part 11, the algorithm that changed everything. It started as a project for Imani. The public school Imani attended had a broken learning management system. Teachers couldn't track homework efficiently. So Zaria created a simple platform to help them manage assignments, grades, and behavior patterns using AI-based prediction tools. She called it LYNX, short for Learning Yields Next. Within 3 months, 5 local schools asked to use it. By month 6, Detroit superintendent requested a meeting. Zaria walked into that meeting with second-hand heels, a stack of handwritten notes, and a voice that trembled with ambition. By the end of the meeting, they offered her a contract worth $50,000, the most money she'd ever seen. But she said no. I want equity, not a payout. They laughed. She didn't. Part 12. The investor who doubted her. A year later, LYNX was in 60 schools across Michigan. Still, Zaria operated out of her apartment, code boards on the wall, Imani coloring next to her. Then came an email from Gareth Wynn, a Silicon Valley venture capitalist known for backing disruptive education tech. He wanted to meet. They met at a conference in Chicago. Zaria, calm and prepared, wore her favorite navy blazer and braids wrapped in gold cuffs. Gareth wore a smirk and shiny shoes. After hearing her pitch, he said, "You're impressive, but I worry this model only works because of your personal charm. Investors want scale, and no offense, but a single black mother from Detroit isn't exactly scalable." Zaria blinked. Neither was Steve Jobs. But here we are. She walked out. Part 13. The Silent Partnership. The next month, an anonymous wire transfer of $200,000 hit her newly formed business account. No message. No strings. It was from Cassandra Dupont, a reclusive billionaire philanthropist who had seen Zaria speak at a youth event on YouTube. Zaria used every dollar with precision. She hired a small team of coders, all women of color. She built a lean, encrypted mobile version of LYNX. By year 3, it was in 600 schools in the Midwest. By year 5, nationwide. Then a private school in Singapore adopted it. Then Australia. Then South Africa. By year 7, Zaria had built Lynaire Global, an AI and learning systems powerhouse, with offices on 4 continents and a valuation crossing $1.2 billion. Part 14. The Daughter and the Dream. Throughout it all, Imani grew. She watched her mother rise not through shortcuts, but through sleepless nights, broken deals, and an unwavering commitment to dignity. They often ate dinner at 10 p.m. They had traditions, Sunday puzzles, Friday storytelling, and victory jars, where they put one sticky note each day celebrating something good, no matter how small. Imani once asked, "Mama, are you the boss of the world now?" Zaria chuckled. "No, baby, but maybe one day you will be." At Imani's high school graduation, Zaria sat in the front row. When her daughter gave the valedictorian speech, she ended with, "My mother taught me that power doesn't always look like gold watches and glass towers. Sometimes it wears sneakers, codes after midnight, and speaks with kindness even when slapped. That's the kind of power I want to be." Part 15. A new generation takes flight. Back on board the Lynaire jet, present day, Imani, now 22, sits beside her mother. She's just completed her degree in socio-technological design. Zaria is grooming her to take on a role within the company, but also gives her room to forge her own ideas. "Mama," Imani says softly, "What if we launch a second company? Something smaller, community-focused, built from the ground up by youth. Minority-owned, grassroots coding labs. In every city like Detroit." Zaria smiles. "Write the blueprint. I'll fund it, but you lead it." They touch fists, a tradition they had since Imani was 6. Outside the window, the sun rises over the Atlantic. 2 generations of black brilliance take flight, not just in aircraft, but in purpose. They are not done building.